This lesson is on 7.7b, Reflections. The objective of this lesson is to learn to transform plane figures using reflections. A transformation is a change in a figure's position or size. Translations, rotations, and reflections are types of transformations. The resulting figure or image of a translation, rotation, or reflection is going to be congruent to the original figure. In other words, it's going to be exactly the same shape, just flipped or turned or slid over. Now a reflection, that's when we're going to flip a figure across a line to create a mirror image. If you look at the red triangle, you see the original one was ABC, and we are reflecting it over the y-axis, and it becomes the A prime, B prime, C prime. Now, in order to figure out where those points are going to be, we've got these two rules here. If you're going to reflect it across the y-axis, the one that goes up and down, you're going to multiply each of the x coordinates by a -1. So instead of x, y, you're going to have the opposite of x, y. Now, if you're going to reflect it across the x-axis, you need to multiply each y coordinate by the -1. So instead of x, y, you're going to have x and the opposite of y. I say opposite because if it's already negative, it's going to become positive. So let's look at our first example here. We need to graph the reflection of the triangle ABC across the y-axis. So in order to do that, I'm going to set up a table kind of like I did on the translations ones. We've got our little table set up here. I have my original point A, 4, 4, my original point B, which is 4, 1, and C, which is 2, 1. Now my rule states that since I'm reflecting it over the y-axis, that I need to multiply each of the x coordinates by a -1. So I'm just going to put -1 on each of these y coordinates. X coordinates. Because we're going to multiply each one by a -1. So you end up with -4, +4. -4, +1. And -2, +1. So if we're going to reflect that, -4, +4 is going to be right there. -4, +1's right there. And -2, +1 is going to be right there. And now you're just going to take and draw your lines. And that's going to be your transformed figure. Here's your A prime, B prime, and C prime. So let's look at example number 2 here. We're going to graph the reflection of this quadrilateral ABCD across the y-axis. Now, another way that you could do this is just by looking at that y-axis, keeping along the same x value that's going to be the same distance away from the y-axis. Let me explain that, show you that. Like this point A, it's on the one line, but it is 1, 2, 3, 4 away from it. Well, we just go 4 away the opposite direction, so right there is going to be A prime. B is 2 away from the y-axis, so we're just going to put the point right there, and then that's going to be B prime. C is 1 away, so it's going to go right there. And D is 4 away on the 3, so it's going to go right there. And then all I have to do is, again, connect them. Now, when you do this, though, you're going to want to tell me, what are these points? So A prime, that's going to be +4, +1. B prime. That's going to be positive 2, positive 1. C prime. That's positive 1, negative 2. And D prime is going to be positive 4, negative 3. I would have gotten the same points if I'd done this table too. So let's look at number 3 here. We're going to graph this one now, reflected over the x-axis. So we're going to take this triangle FGH and reflect it across the x-axis. Remember, if we're reflecting across the x-axis, we need to multiply each of the y-coordinates by a negative 1. So this time I'm going to set up the table here. And again, like I said, all we have to do is multiply each of them by the negative 1 for the y value. So then I'm going to have negative 4, and a negative 2 times negative 1 is going to be giving me a positive. And then 1 and negative 3 times a negative 1 is going to be a positive 3. And this is going to be negative 2 and, again, a positive 4. Now you're just going to need to plot those points. So this figure is exactly the same triangle, just reflected over the x-axis. All I did was plot the points and connect the dots. Now looking at number 4, you should be able to do this one. This one you're going to have to use the rule here. Given the coordinates of 1, 4, what is it, the new coordinates, after you reflect it across the y-axis? Remember that across the y-axis means that you're going to multiply the x-coordinate by a negative 1. So pause the video and figure out this one. You should have gotten negative 1, 4. Let's look at number 5. Give the coordinates of 1, 4 after a reflection across the x-axis. Remember, x-axis, multiply each of the y-coordinates by a negative 1. Pause the video and try this one. In this case, you would have gotten a positive 1, negative 4. Okay, now looking at number 6, it is asking you to graph the reflection of the triangle ABC across the y-axis. Pay attention to which one's the y-axis. Pause the video and try this one on your own. So if you did this one correct, you would have gotten a shape that looks just like this on the graph. And your A prime would have been negative 1, 4, your B prime, negative 3, 4, and your C prime, negative 2, 1. Now looking at number 7, it's asking you to graph the reflection of triangle ABC across the x-axis. Make sure that you're reflecting across the x-axis, which means you're going to multiply each of the y-coordinates by a negative 1. Go ahead, try this one on your own. When you're done with it, bring it up to me to have it checked, and then I'll give you the worksheet to practice.